Okay, so everybody needs to have their packet out on Harry Houdini. This is the second video that you need to watch. We are on page 809. And this morning we did the top part of this worksheet, and then we talked about making an inference here. We went back to lines 121 and 127, and so you'll have to watch that. And we talked about how that used propaganda. So right now we're going to start with question number 5, identifying supporting details. Remember, plot is made up of details. Okay, the professional word for like your teacher is plot, and all you have to remember is plot are the events of a story. And you can see this graphic organizer for main idea. Main idea, we talked about it all year. Main idea is what the paragraph or the story is all about, okay? And so you can see the main idea that they're dealing with here. Houdini never gave up on a good idea. And then they want you to support that statement, and you pull out the details and you put them in these boxes. So one of the author's main ideas in this selection is that Houdini never gave up on a good idea. Line 75. So you need to skim the selection to find supporting details that back up this statement. So did anybody do this for homework like I asked you to? Does anybody have a detail right off the bat? Okay. So it's on line 75. So when you go into the packet, there are tiny numbers on the side. It looks like line 75 is on page 807. Do you see these little numbers here? There's line 60. Here's line 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, and right there it is. Houdini never gave up on a good idea. If audiences didn't like an escape he liked, he tried to improve the presentation. He had the patience and determination to keep going back over a problem until it was solved. So what are we looking for? So the first detail that supports this main idea, kept working on his escapes until people liked them. Okay. So let's just read some of these pages because I know probably most of you probably did not read the story, which you need to make sure. I'm going to walk around here in a second and to look to see if you have your active reading done. That's how I'm going to know if you did your work or not. While playing a Minneapolis hall in the spring of 1899, lightning struck Houdini's floundering career. Martin Beck, who ran the entire Orpheum vaudeville circuit, liked metamorphoses and the handcuff escape. He told Houdini to drop the card, billiard ball, and paper tearing tricks from the act. Beck wanted Houdini to do a 20-minute turn in the top vaudeville theaters for $60 a week, more than he had ever earned before. Houdini wrote that the offer changed my whole life's journey. Now remember, I'm looking for details to support how he never gave up on a good idea. Haven't found any just yet. Like a jewel under a bright light, Houdini responded to attention by revealing brilliant new facets. Now he played only 2 shows a day, not 12. He stayed in cities for a week or more, not one night. This gave him the time and the platform to experiment with his act and impress his audience. So I would think that that could be a detail, right, to support he never gave up on a good idea. So he was let's just summarize it. He was able to spend more time in a city. To convince the people. So he probably got to know them, know what they liked and what they didn't like, and he was able to make them better so that when he went to the next city, he had already made those changes and was able to, if he went to the next city and they had other suggestions, he was able to fix it from that city. So I'll come back to that. So don't worry if you haven't gotten it. Actually, on this page here. He constantly improved metamorphosis. He sometimes borrowed a suit jacket from the audience, which he would put on before going into the trunk. After the switch, Bess would emerge wearing the borrowed jacket. Sometimes he took people into the trunk who escaped with him. Responding to an accusation that he used keys to open handcuffs, Houdini went to a San Francisco police station on July 13, 1899. His clothes were removed and examined by a police surgeon who certified that he was hiding nothing. His mouth was taped shut, his wrists and ankles were shackled in 10 sets of police handcuffs. For good measure, the ankle cuffs were attached to the handcuffs with an 11th pair before he was locked into an interrogation room. 5 minutes later, Houdini walked out, still, and I don't know, the way most polite newspapers spelled the word naked then, carrying all the cuffs in his hands. In April 1900, again unclothed, he took just 3 minutes to escape from a doubly locked jail cell in Kansas City. He repeated these escapes whenever the police allowed. Each police force added new obstacles, almost desperate not to be embarrassed by this upstart magician. But they always were. And as Houdini knew, the stories written about him by big city newspapers were the most valuable and cheapest advertising available. So, never gave up on a good idea. What can be our last detail from that? He perfected, let's put, because the he perfected the handcuff trick by being exposed to many different types. Okay, so it says clarify main idea. What do you think is the main idea of the entire selection? If you didn't read it, it's hard to answer that question, isn't it? So does anybody have an answer they want to give me? What do you think the main idea to the whole story was? Sierra? Talk about Harry Houdini's life? Okay. What about the word persevere? I teach this to 8th grade using Louis Zamperini. It's over there on my bookshelf. Persevere means don't quit. Do you think maybe that could be the main idea? Probably. And then number 7, we talked about chronological order the other day. We talked about the root chron, which means what? David, what does the root chron mean? Time, that's right. So if you have words that have the root in there, perhaps it deals with time. Look back at the timeline you made as you read. Now, you were supposed to do that in your head. Remember, the act of reading would help you do that. So hopefully, in what ways does the use of chronological order help you understand the path Houdini took in order to become famous? Well, it helps you because you can see that he did not become a success overnight. It took many, many years and many, many failures. Okay. And so if you guys don't have all this written down, don't worry, you can go back and watch it. But let's move on so that we can get this finished and we can continue. So on the back, this won't take us very long. Here's the vocab. Remember, they only gave you 4 vocab words. I gave you more than that. Show that you understand the vocabulary words by deciding whether each statement is true or false. I'll read it. You tell me what you think the answer is. When you commence a project, you are almost done. Is that true or false? What does commence mean? Sierra? To get started? Yep. So is it true or false? It is false. If you commence, that means you get started, not finish. When teachers devise homework assignments, they are grading them. True or false? Well, if I devise homework assignments, that's where I'm planning. So this is false as well. Remember, devise means to start a plan or a design. If someone can certify a claim, you ought to believe it. Troy? That is true. Certify means to make it believable, to authenticate it. Something that helps you achieve your goals is an obstacle. Troy? That is false. An obstacle gets in your way. You did not have to do vocabulary and writing. Vocabulary strategy, foreign words in English. Well, this should make sense to you because I keep talking to you about root words and where they came from and how English is the hardest language to learn because we've borrowed from many different languages. As an English speaker, you might be surprised to learn that many of the words we regularly use actually come from other languages. For example, the word vaudeville comes from a French word meaning humorous songs. Understanding how languages share words can add to your knowledge of word meanings. Well, our class already knows that. Use a dictionary, which we're not going to do, to find the original language and meaning of each of the boldface words. Try using these words in your own speech and writing. Well, we probably should do that, but maybe we know the origins of these words. We always have macaroni for dinner on Wednesday nights. If you want to perform in the ballet, you will have to practice. Well, that to me sounds like ballet sounds French. So what I'm going to do is I will do another video with the answers to these, okay? He prefers to eat tofu rather than chicken or beef. I went to the opera with my grandparents last year. She enjoys having breakfast out on the patio. So what you need to do is you need to go to dictionary.com, find where these words originated and write it down, and then check the video to see if you are correct.